It's very early on in Paid to Think, and we're going to be touching on the topic of the value of thinking. And while I've done a lot of videos in my life, I got to tell you, this one section here is very challenging for me because there's so many underlying current messages that I'm actually having the book open saying to myself, how do I bring these together? Now, the challenge with, or the opportunity in the value of thinking is that I don't want you to ever underestimate the value of thinking early, making decisions, and the value of thinking. We tend to move towards making motion first instead of really thinking something through. And if you can make better decisions, just one better decision in your lifetime, you're going to be able to leverage the capital, the resources, the people, to be able to build whatever you're trying to build, to grow whatever you're trying to grow in dimensional ways, in a way that you can really make a difference. Now, what would one better decision do? Well, let's say you're a superintendent of a school system and you make one better decision. You can end up educating thousands upon millions of people just because of that decision. If you're in the military, one better decision can save lives and save countless expenses. If you were in a nonprofit organization or profit organization, one better decision can make the difference between bankruptcy and survival. I mean, the value of thinking is the role you've signed up for. And the challenge with that is that in this time frame, when the book is written, and probably you could use the same thing throughout history, is that we're using tools that don't fit the times. Think about technology, communications, and the speed in which organizations are moving today. And then think about the fact that we're using the exact same tools today as we might have done 25 years ago, 15 years ago. It's as if we used to move at 65 miles an hour, but the world is now moving at 200. And the difference is you need a whole new set of tools to be able to work in that environment. And I personally haven't seen them. I've looked all over. Remember, this journey started with me wanting to improve myself, and I found that there were new answers out there. I love Henry Ford saying the fact that thinking is the hardest work there is, which is probably the reason why so few engage in it. Ultimately, the responsibility for decision that you make fall on you. And if we can improve that performance, what type of return would that be for your life, for your journey that you're on? Now, as an individual, the value for Paid to Think, or the value of thinking, is that we're going to give you tools that you can transfer to other people. You can utilize to be able to interconnect how you work with one another. And what's even more valuable with the content you're going to be learning about is there's an interconnectivity between them. If you improve one skill, you would improve another. And the way in which Paid to Think has been put together is just improving one will in fact improve the others. You don't see them in separate silos of understanding. Now, the results or the benefits from doing something like this, it's the difference between being proactive and reactive. It's the difference between looking at the world at 50,000 feet versus 30,000 feet, and that if you could tear down those silos and those barriers and synchronize better, you'll find that the people, the organization, the benefits will multiply exponentially. Now let me describe how Paid to Think is put together, because it'll help you to understand the dynamics of it. The first chapter is the introduction. You're going to get to know about Paid to Think. The second chapter is called Rethinking. And what it's going to do is have you question. I'm not going to tell you their answers, but have you re-question some of the premises you've probably made a lot of decisions on. And a lot of people reading it say, I never looked at the world that way. Chapter 3 through 15 drive you through a whole new set of tools, skill sets, methodologies, approaches, ways to improve your performance. And then the last chapter summarizes and brings together, and there are some surprises in those last few chapters. Here's the way in which I suggest you read the book, and I've talked about it earlier, but it's going to help you a little bit more. The intro, the first two chapters are foundational. From that point on, you can actually skip to anywhere in the book if you'd like. It took 12 years to write and 14 revisions to get here. What we tried to do is make it so that you can actually take a section out of the book, and use it with your team. Let's say you're working on something and you say, they're not going to read the whole book, but they'll read this. You can give it to them and immediately start to apply it. So you can take your foundation, skip to it, learn it, and move back. I'll end with this story. When I first was writing the book and I sent it off to the indexer to do the indexing, the guy said to me, David, no one will read a 700-page book today. And I said, well, they did read Harry Potter, and not that I'm Harry Potter, but they did read books, and they have read books that are that large. And I said, if it's a good book, I think they will. And I said, do me a favor. You've read thousands of books. He says, yes, and we talked about them. I said, do me a favor. Read the forward, the intro in the first 2 chapters. Get back to me. Tell me what you think. 2 weeks later, I received an email. David, I'd like you to know we just secured our largest deal in our 21-year history learning what I've learned from Paid to Think. I'm not saying this to boast. I'm saying this so that you understand that you'll find new answers in the content of Paid to Think. And by understanding how it's designed, you'll be able to amplify the results you get. So we're ready to move forward. I hope you are too.